If it ain't PS, it's BS. Do you smell? It's like, no, let me stop playing. Okay. Welcome back to another Purpose Served podcast episode. I'm your host, Darren Wingfield. If you are new to this podcast is literally about inspiring you to create on whatever your dreams and aspirations are, whatever you're passionate about, whatever your goals are. That's what this place is for. The purpose for this is to innovate and improve the human experience. And um, go back to the previous podcast episodes to really catch that vibe here, and what goes on. Um, Nothing but positive vibes here. We don't do no bad juju here. Nothing spicy, but pretty much just being the best version of yourself that you possibly can be. That's what the vibe is here. You know what I mean? And for those of you that's not new to this podcast, welcome back. Welcome back. I'm glad that y'all tuning in for another one. And I'm starting to develop a habit of checking my downloads pretty much almost every morning. And it's so freaking cool to see that I'm seeing at least like one or two downloads pretty much almost every single day, and it's no longer. I haven't had the feeling in a while, but I remember we talking about this before with the vibe of me feeling like I was talking to myself, and now that I know that I got lovely, beautiful listeners and people that's watching as well, that is awesome, and I'm really, really grateful for that. Quick story time. Spice. OD Spice alert. Last week, my car broke down. Yet again. Yet again. Life being life. I went to go take my friend to drop off his rental and then take him to pick up his car. So this is literally right after I got off of work. So this is within an hour of me going off of work. And just to backtrack to y'all, at my job it was my supervisor's birthday, right? And I didn't eat any cake. I got to the party late. I was the we wasted the good surprise on you guy, but I got to this little party late. And they're giving out cake and stuff like that. And I said, I don't want cake. I could do the pizza, but I'm not really a sweets guy. I'm not really into cake and none of that BS. But I was like, nah, I'm good. And the lady that I work with, she said that, are you sure? It's bad luck to not take a cake. You don't have to eat it, but just take a slice. And literally, my exact words were, I can live with that. I can live with, betting on my luck. I'm cool with that. And it's like, okay. Fast forward, that was around 12:30, 1 o'clock. Fast forward to like 4:30. I'm hype. We hype. I'm in the music, in my car bumping. Like, yeah, yeah. And then I noticed that my check engine light started blinking, and I'm like, whoa, 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 dang, that's not it. And then when I was pressing down on the gas, it was going up incrementally, and it was like going up 34, 35, 36. It was like 34, 35, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 50. It was going up slow, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's really not good. And then noticed that it started maintaining the speed while I got my foot pretty much down on the pedal. And then out of nowhere, the car started slowing down. So I'm like, oh man, Jesus Christ, this is OD. And we eventually had to park up, and I had to think of a plan. We were literally 1.5 miles away from the place where he had to go pick up his car. And the place closed at 6 o'clock, and I think currently at this moment it was like 5 o'clock that this started happening. So I call a tow to come to the car, and we're trying to figure out a game plan. And I'm like, you know what? At this point, we're only a mile and a half away. Let's just walk. I'm on. this this road slash highway. It's really a highway. It's 130. Ironically enough, if you guys go back to, it was a podcast that I made. If some of the OGs that's been listening to the podcast like from the jump, literally around this time, it was in May. I made a podcast talking about wow, Risk Taker. I can't believe I freaking remember that. The episode podcast was called Risk Taker, and in that episode, I talk about what happened to me and how I totaled my last car driving, and the brakes gave out. Spice. It was a crazy situation. It was a spice from wanting to going to Cherry Hill, which is probably like a 20-25 minute drive to go play basketball, and it was worth it. It was definitely worth it. And fast forward now, I didn't. It took me. The car went down in May. I got a new car back in like I want to say September, mid September, beginning of September, and then now, currently, it's July 1st, and spiced myself again last Friday. So pulled over, and then on the same where my car got totaled the last time, my car got totaled on 130 yet again. Well, not totaled. I ain't even drive it to that point. But we had to cross this 130 road in order, or highway, in order to get to where my friend car is. And at this point, I was willing to do it. I was going to risk it for the biscuit. I was going to drive that car since it was only a mile and a half. I was going to be like, you know what? Let's drive till the wheels fall off. But I chose to be responsible in the situation and just like let's not make the matters worse than what it is. And I just like, this can stay here. We can walk. But ultimately, we ended up going there, crossing the highway. We was playing leapfrog. Seriously, it was on a hill too. So cars is coming up going like 60, 65, and we had to chill in like the middle of 130 and cross the incoming traffic on the other side. So it was like it was pretty nuts, and then do the same thing coming back. Um, just so he wasn't able to get his car that day either. So it was like trickling down from a situation that's being shitty to even more shitty, to be quite honest. And I'm still currently without a car. I have to wait till the 16th of July for them to service my car because they have a lot of cars at the dealership that they're servicing right now, which blows. You know what I mean? So I just gotta make a way pretty much every day. But I'm not used to this. I was literally in the same situation last summer, so I'm not really all too stressed out about it. Before I would be, but I'm not. But that car juju was going around right now. My mom got a flat tire in her Lexus yesterday. Me and my brother had to go by to like help her out, which is crazy. It was almost like a week apart. Crazy enough, but that's like a little story to have you guys updated with life right now in regards to me and with the car thing. So you guys know I'm not playing. Car spices for me are real. But today I wanted to talk about for this podcast episode about rebellion, being a rebel. Um, because it has such a negative connotation towards, I guess, that word. And when you think about somebody that's a rebel, you think about them in the context of, my phone was just going off. 1 second. Sorry about that. But you think about it in the context of people that's, I guess, rebelling, like teenagers. When you think about rebels, you think about like a teenager. You think about I don't even know when teenagers start developing a mind of their own and start doing their own thing. They start rebelling. Now, is that really a bad thing? Like for real, is that really a bad thing? And to me, I don't think so. I think that it's a level of understanding that you must have when looking at rebellion. in this kind of context because oftentimes when somebody tend to go against the grain of what everybody else is doing, they don't feel comfortable with doing what everybody else is doing or doing what they are told to do. And for me personally, that's literally been my life. I guess since I started school, since I was around other people that was outside of my immediate family, which was like outside of my mom, which was outside of my dad, my brother, my aunts, my cousins. But going to school, and that's where the whole process start of your like individuation of you becoming your own. You know, at that age of like 5 or 6, but ever since like around that age, I was like that. You know what I'm saying? I was that type of person that I was I was going to do my own thing no matter what. No matter what the consequences were, no matter yeah, if it worked out in my favor or not, I was going to do what I felt like I wanted to do. If I was frustrated, I was going to act out of frustration. If I was sad, I was going to act out of my sadness. And oftentimes it's a misunderstanding when I was doing that, you know. And from the outside looking in, it seemed like, you know, it was more so whipping me back into shape to conform and put me in a box rather than understanding why I was acting like that. And I think that, you know, speaking to the younger generation, younger than myself, like kids that's in middle school, college, high school, um you're dealing with that. You're dealing with that first hand, you know? And that's a lot to handle. That's really a lot to handle. And that's how young I started. For most, I don't know. I guess it's typically not like that, but always been really irrational. Still to this day I'm really irrational, but that led me to where I'm at currently right now. And there's beauty in rebellion, and especially if it's for the right cause. If you rebelling just to be a monster, that's on you. I ain't talking about that here. But for me, it came from a lack of understanding. It came from a lack of understanding and miscommunication from those around me. And the older that I got, I felt like I was more and more misunderstood, which caused me to rebel more and more and more the older that I got. You know, instead of maturing, I was getting more immature. So the prime of my immaturity had to be when I was like 19, 20, 19, 20, 21. That's like a real crazy. Those are that's like a real crazy age when you first graduate high school, especially for you, those of you that's entering the workforce and going to school. Um, you start to think that you're a full fledged adult, and for a lot of people that's in those years, you still got a lot to learn. You know, I feel as though all throughout our journey with life, there's always so much to be learned, but especially in those years, and we kind of shut the learning off and put on that cap where it says I know everything, and on the back of that cap it says you can't tell me anything. At least I can speak for myself that I was like that, and ultimately that gave me I had a really really hard time. Um, but for me, what I'm trying to put the context of with rebellion is just that don't be afraid to be different and do different things. You know, even though people may look at you a certain type of way, and I talk about it on here all the time with my basketball journey. That was the case, and I also talk about the extremes that it led me down. For those of you that's new to the podcast, you know, go back to the previous ones and here and there. Not in a straight shot, but here and there throughout. I believe this is kind of crazy. I think this is episode 50, 58, but the 55 plus episodes, I had a really tough time talking about some of the experiences that I had, with being a rebel in a sense and rebellion, and in this kind of sense, not in a good way, but a way that was very detrimental to myself and the people that was around me and the people that was trying to help me. Um, and my loved ones was like helping me figure this out during that stage of between like 18, 19, and like 22. There was this one moment, I can't remember how old I was. I went to the gym and I was smacked. I was Hot 97 Smack Fest 2005. I was Smack DVDs, Rap Battle Smack, the whole nine. And people were coming in, and I'm pretty sure I told your story. I probably didn't. And of course, they like, haha, Daryl, yeah, he smacked, yada, yada, yada. I was cooking. I was blazed out my mind. And then my brother walks in the gym, and he looks at me, and he looked at me like, you look dumb. You look stupid, bruh. You look so stupid right now. And he got a straight face. And that feeling I got from that feeling hurt. That feeling hurt. That was one of those where I was like, oh, I don't look cool. I look pretty stupid, and it's just like, dang, I wish I could just sober up right now. You know what I mean? But I can't. But I felt extremely embarrassed that my little brother was like looking at me in that kind of way. You know what I mean? And in that sense, and oftentimes, like, my brother sometimes he definitely gives off the vibe like he sometimes feels like my older brother, even though we are the oldest. But in a sense, he's a rebel as well. We kind of got the same mindset where if you doing something, you do it to the best of your ability as often as you can. Quality and quantity. You know what I mean? How good can you make something, and how often can you make that a good thing? And I try to do my best with that with this podcast. And around that age of 1921, if you guys go back, I ran into a decent amount of trouble throughout those years. And an incident that I did talk about was 7 plus years ago was when my mom came to pick me up from the police department, and how upset she was when she did pick me up, and finding out about some of the trouble I was getting into. And that blue notebook, she wrote in that blue notebook that I read to y'all with the talking about Kobe's passing in the previous podcast. In that same blue notebook, she wrote in that as well the day that I got in trouble, and she's scribbling it. Daryl, hard headed. Daryl, tickets, warrants, blah blah blah. Listen to prices, all everything. You know what I mean? And she's like angry writing it. Um, and I'm currently literally looking at it like right now. You know what I mean? My license didn't get suspended, but I had to give the car over to my brother. It was a Toyota Corolla at the time, 2007, which I did a number on that car. Got into a car accident on Thanksgiving in that car. Yeah, that was crazy. Driving like a freaking idiot, and my cousin was in the car, and two of my friends. But yeah, and if you guys are watching this, it's right here. It is literally right here, and it may be too bright for you guys to see. But give me 1 second. I have to put this to the camera. But you guys just seen that if you watching this on like YouTube or something. But you see the angry handwriting Daryl Hardhead, and this is around the time I dropped out of college. It was too much for me. I was stressed out going to school. I wasn't going to school for the right reasons, and I was doing a whole lot outside of school, and it caught up to me. It literally caught up to me extremely, extremely fast, and that was like the first moment which I talked about on here where a light bulb went off, and it wasn't clear what I was seeing, but I wasn't in the dark no more. I was seeing something. I was seeing something, but I just didn't quite know what it was. Now through basketball, it helped me discover what I was seeing, you know, and everything, before that point, from going all the way back to kindergarten when I said the rebellion started. From what I remember, another check mark for me was Mr. Kita, my science teacher, telling me, choose something that's realistic. And I still, when it came to a career, and I chose an NBA player, I decided to still play basketball. That's rebellion. That's rebelling against what a norm is, instead of saying, you know what, he's right. I shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? I should not be doing this. I said, nope. Now I want to do this even more because you said I can't. And once I got cut, high school, same thing. I was like, okay, I still want to do this. I just got to go harder. And then it all hit me, around that time when I just showed you what I just showed you guys, and just talked about where I started rebelling for the wrong reasons, because when I started rebelling for the right reasons, it wasn't working out. And it was hard to keep pressing on. And life can be very difficult and hard to press on if you don't associate a meaning to it, you know? Even though you don't have to, but when you attach meaning to your life somehow, you start to develop purpose, and life start to not look so, bleak and mundane, and feeling like you're waking up just to go to your job and get through your week just to eventually retire, grow old, and die. Nobody wants to live that way, but think about how many people are literally right now are in that. Some of y'all that's listening to this are probably in that kind of mix as well. And all the people that passed away that lived that kind of life. And I talk about this all the time, where there's so many people that had crazy ideas, crazy inventions, crazy innovation plans in their head, and they didn't act on it because because through everybody constantly bombarding them with what they deem that they should be and what they should be doing, that ultimately that kills your individuality, that kills your uniqueness, that kills your authenticity. And it's hard to carry on when you're living like that. It gets progressively harder the older that you get, if you're not really associating what you're doing to any sort of meaning. And that's why a lot of people fall into that trap of feeling like I'm not meant to do, I don't have a purpose. I don't I don't know what my purpose is. You know what I mean? I don't think everybody has a purpose because of that bombardment and that constant bombardment. And when you do try to make a way for yourself, as you're met with um an insurmountable amount of like a lot of resistance that's keeping you away from keep going towards that. And from my personal experience, I lived it, I looked through it, and I went through it completely, and I'm still going through it literally right now as we speak, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But what has helped me is associating meaning to who I am and what I do and trying to understand it more clear. And I'm not I'm not trying to chase perfection with what I'm doing. My goal for me personally, outside of purpose served, is to be whole. You know, it feels like I'm a part of something that's whole. That's something that's been dwelling on my heart and soul for like the last 2 years since the pandemic started. It felt like I was a part of a whole, and I had to rethink my approach to life and all of that. And that's where introspection comes into play. Something that I talk about on here a lot as well. And for those of you that's looking for that deeper meaning associated with things that you care about, that's how you bring that out. And you can't, it's not something that should be forced as well. You know, it 100% shouldn't be forced. It should come as natural as the sun goes up and down every single day, you know? And for me, that's what I'm trying to generate and create for you guys. Is a place where that you have a space to do that. You where you don't have to feel like you're rebelling, but the universe is conspiring to help you out instead of feeling like you're getting met with the resistance. And that's what made people ultimately stop, is being met with that resistance, oftentimes for the first time. And shout out to Joseph Campbell, one of my muses, and the hero's journey. Get used to hearing that, new listeners. You're it's called the term is called threshold guardian. If you guys want to look this up, threshold guardian. It's one of the stages to the hero's journey. But when you meet with that the resistance for the first time, and most people turn away once they meet the resistance and, oh, this is not for me. Turn around. And I thrive right now currently on standing 10 toes down, chest out, chin up. I'm about to meet this thing head on. And you will figure out when it's all said and done that oftentimes once you get over these threshold guardians and the resistance that is typically your mindset, um, that's the reason why things are happening the way that it is. It's not everything, but it's a part of it. And also, I'm coming at the BS law of attraction woo woo. I literally hate that shit. I used to be a law of attraction kind of a guy. You know what I mean? Like, Think and Grow Rich gives off law of attraction vibes and all of that. But I quickly realized that things are compounded with other things. This is what I mean by that. You not only have to have the belief, you got to be willing to put the work in. You just can't believe that something is going to happen and expect it to happen. You have to take some sort of action to bring that about. You also have to put yourself in the right place, in the right setting, to make that thing a reality, whatever that thing is. So not only do you have to have, belief and faith in it, you got to put in the work. You have to you have to see yourself doing that work and do that work, and also putting yourself in the right place. It's not necessarily one thing. You just also simply can't do the work. You can't just study the stuff. You have to put all of these things together in order to see it through. So when you are met with something that's the form of resistance, understand all of those things that I just said, and trace it back to your belief system within that thing, and understand why do you feel like you feel towards that thing, and why can't you get over the hump. And then once you get that down. We're gonna get the the negative the negative spices out the way, and you were able to see that. You got to put in work to do this as well. And this is something that I used to do with basketball. I would watch film of me playing in the game, right? And I would see the situations if I turned the ball over, if if I missed shots, if my footwork was wrong, lost my footing. I will watch this stuff. I will mark it down, and I have a notebook for that as well. It's a red basketball notebook, blue, red, and green. My green notebook, which I have right here. If you're still watching this, this is my purpose served notebook to start off with. This book is pretty much filled, to be quite honest. Just like the blue one, that one's like pretty much 98% filled. My red notebook, that's probably like 60, 70% filled. But I would watch film and I would do timestamps on when I would miss shots, turn the ball over, miss a read. I will mark these things down and I will watch it. And then after that, I will also take notes on what I can do to uh, be more successful in those situations. And then after that, I will put my body through those right movements when the next time I practice on the court by visualizing a situation. And then after that, setting up my, you know, the practice in my head of what my body needs to feel and what it needs to do in order for me to succeed in that situation. And that turned into a habit after Spain. After I played in Spain, I started doing that in 2018. I played in um, a combine in North Carolina. I was out there for like 3 days. I think I was in Charlotte. That wasn't in Charlotte. I think I was in Durham. I think that's how you pronounce it. Where UNC and Duke and all of that area, NC State and all of that. But yeah, after that fact, that's when I started getting to the process of watching film. I watched a lot of NBA film around that time, watching at that time the Golden State Warriors with KD and the boys, and watching their plays and watching their sets because they were like they had really efficient offense, and typically the players are shooting in the same spots all the time, and I was like really curious about that. But fast forward to me watching this film, and that's what I would do. And ultimately, I started noticing that that was making me better really, really quickly, you know. But also, ultimately, it was like there's still a lot more room for improvement to go, you know. But ultimately, I started rebelling against myself in regards to what I thought I was capable of. So around that time, I just when I read you guys the Daryl's hard headed knucklehead mom spice, um, I challenged myself on playing in the NBA. I didn't think I was able to do it, but I challenged myself. And then that was around 2018. I wanted to be the first player in NBA history to not play in high school or college. And fast forward to 2019, I found myself in Philadelphia, in the middle of a, the Delaware Blue Coats, the NBA G League team right now, 76ers affiliate team, trying out for them. And this dude's like, which if you're not a fan of basketball, you're not gonna like notice, but Ronaldo Balkman, he played on the Knicks. He was there. Dude, Corey Sanders, like it was being in that environment. I was like, dag, like I belong. Like you know what I mean. I'm scoring. I got cut. Ultimately, I did get cut, but being in that experience and all of that, you know, even doing that, I it was challenging to bring myself to try out for an NBA G League team, you know, because of the limited beliefs I held in myself. And every step of the way, I have been challenging myself, and that's why I tell you guys that it is scary going down this journey of discovering yourself. But not only that, um, ultimately providing a way to help others and prove or innovate what's going on currently right now in this world. This shit is madness, yo. It's pretty crazy. And as time goes on, the most dangerous thing is that we're looking at this from such a materialistic lens. Like, You know, most people nowadays is getting into a relationship based off of somebody else's body. You know what I mean? How they look, the physical attraction to them, and not, you know what I mean? That's not necessarily a problem, but also the vibe somebody gives off is should be that should be in consideration. You know what I mean? What this person interest is, but none of that seem like it matters. People want fame. People want the newest car. People want money. People want a house. People want this job. But people aren't seeking meaning in their life and living off of that meaning. And that's so much more valuable than those other things because those things, as time goes on, it withers away to the point where I'll talk about the life and death cycle. That prime example, when you attach things to the physical plane, it's going to be a certain point where you're going to have to let it go because it will dissolve. You know what I mean? It will lose its value over time, but meaning don't lose value over time. You can keep generating better and better meaning and deeper meaning and live off of that. And that keeps you going. And ultimately, that's what led me here right now in this very present moment speaking to you guys the way that I'm speaking to you guys. The very first Purpose Served podcast episode, I was so nervous, camera shy. I wasn't comfortable doing this at all. Um, and I was like, I'm talking to myself. This is weird. I was real self conscious about that. Now I know that I'm not talking to myself. I'm talking to people that's looking to hear this, and that means so much to me. But not only that, whatever you guys are choosing to do, I know that you're listening to this because you feel the same kind of way towards life as I do. And I pray in the future that Purpose Served has a space for you to do what you need to do. Have the resources, your sword. Like, the Wu Tang Clan. Y'all know nothing about the Wu Tang Clan, man. Y'all know nothing about the Wu Tang Clan. If y'all listen to the Wu Tang Clan, y'all know them. They when they talk about their swords, man, they talking about that pen. They talking about that pen. But that basketball was my sword. This microphone right now was my sword. You know what I mean? Because I'm able to use it to either, you know, give back to like life or take away from it. But I'm choosing to give back to life in some way, shape, or form that that I believe is helpful. Um, this is the end of the podcast episode. I want to give a couple of shout outs as I typically do. Um, the first shout out is to everybody, of course, that's made it this far to this podcast. I appreciate you guys, like, for real. And also collaboratively to everybody that I keep talking about it that's been on this podcast and that's still pursuing their journey and that's still pursuing their dreams. I encourage you all to go look at some of the guest appearances that I had on the podcast. I had guests ranging from um, you know, a mindfulness coach, social worker, painters, artists, NBA player, um, trainers from basketball to like physical trainers. Um, so many different type of vibes on here, and the vibes is only going to expand. That's the goal. And speaking of goal, this is the goal that I want you guys to walk away with. Well, not even a goal. Just remember this. Um, serve your purpose. Take action towards your goal. That's what serve your purpose means. Taking action towards your goal. And treat the purpose as if it's the goal, and the service is the action that's needed for you to accomplish that goal that you set out for. See it as it's already done. It's already been within you, within your heart, within your mind. Just see it through physically and get beyond that resistance. Get beyond that threshold guardian. You know what I'm saying? And I'm out. Last but not least. Deuces! Yeah, buddy! We out!